Hi guys, so we're going to be talking to John tonight. We're going to be doing a lot of digging into nutrition for the both of us, like how we eat, what we eat, and discussing that in loose terms, how it relates to Crohn's and colitis. And we're also going to be talking a little bit about how different foods affect us and what we've done to maybe make it affect us less, and how we've maybe been able to absorb those into our diets where we get the best out of the food that we eat. If you've got any comments, guys, just make sure you leave them down below. We can have a bit of a discussion about this. It's a massive topic. So any foods that you think you can't eat, or you do eat, or you've worked out a way of eating it, why not share it down below and we can make this into a bit of a conversation, because the more we talk about it and the more we share our ideas, the better it's going to be for everybody. Good evening, guys. Welcome to tonight's episode of CrohnsCast. Fellow warrior John Felton's with me, and we're going to be talking about nutrition. John, do you want to say hello to the guys?
Hello, guys. Another Sunday evening, another topic to discuss. What we might do is touch on a few areas that we've done before. Possibly, I don't know. See which way this goes. But hopefully we can kind of relay our experiences. I think that would be the kind of crux of it. Really, is getting our point across of what's affected us, and hopefully then that may give you a bit of food for thought. No pun intended.
What's kind of brought this topic on is that we've been talking about it ourselves, really, just around the kitchen table at lunchtimes.
Yeah.
I'll be eating something and you can't eat that, and I'm sort of none the wiser whenever I eat it. So yeah. So first of all, what do you think is the main thing for us when we're thinking about food?
Just from general day to day. Not so much from a performance point of view. So I guess the biggest, I don't know if I should say, like, the biggest message really, or the biggest thing we should think about is what really works for you. Now, when I had the J pouch, I found that there was a lot of foods that I had to spend a lot of time getting used to again, in comparison to when I had the stoma. And obviously that's reflected now that I've gone back to having a permanent ileostomy. I can definitely see the difference with the foods that I eat. So I found one of the best things really that worked for me for bulking out when I had a J pouch was roughage. So getting good sources of vegetables in your body, especially carrots. Obviously softer carrots, not obviously eating them raw, because that won't work. But getting stuff in like that would make a big difference to my pouch. It would cause bulking, so that I could actually pass that better on the toilet. Whereas conversely, the complete opposite, if I was to have chocolate, which we all love chocolate, of course we do. If I had chocolate, horrendous.
By the time you bring up chocolate, it makes me want to go and get a bar.
Go and get a bar. Go and get a bar. But yeah, I found that chocolate and not that I drink, but if I had a little bit, if I was to try alcohol, especially anything gaseous, would be an absolute nightmare. So I just kind of avoided them things really, which was tough, which was really tough. Not so much the alcohol, weren't that bothered, but it was the chocolate was a big one for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been a lot of trial and error. I think that's the main thing, trial and error.
I mean, is that in terms of just keeping your energy levels up and just making sure you get enough vitamin minerals in?
I guess so. Yeah. I mean, I just kind of found what worked best for me. Like I said, from just general day-to-day stuff, I would just, when it comes to performance, I mean, not an athlete myself, but just for pure training and getting your energy up. Obviously, getting a lot of protein into my body and carbohydrates. Now that would mostly be from solid foods, rather than protein shakes, because that's something my stomach couldn't tolerate. However, what I did find was putting the protein into something like a porridge. I think we discussed this before, putting protein into a porridge, so you've got your carbs and protein in there together. That would be okay on my stomach. So that would give me the kind of recovery or even the energy prior to training. Coffee is a good kind of stimulant for training, if of course you don't consume copious amounts of coffee and literally become what's the word I'm looking for? Basically, it doesn't work for you. If you drink copious amounts of coffee, then you're not going to get the same kind of stimulant as you would do if obviously if you didn't drink as much coffee. So, but the only thing with coffee is that I could only drink a small amount because again that would kind of go straight through me otherwise. So I drink just about enough to give me enough energy to train. But
are you able to drink coffee now with your
yeah, absolutely, yeah, much better now with the ileostomy. I think I've seen a big change from having the J pouch to managing what I can eat. Obviously having the ileostomy now is a lot different from the J pouch. Hugely, I don't really understand why. It's not like I have the same amount of output coming out the ileostomy as what I would have done out my backside. Mm-hmm. I think whatever's going on down there, it just seems to handle things a lot better. I don't know why. I couldn't even explain that why. I don't know. I don't know.
It's probably just a release of the pressure that you have to go to the bathroom. So I think whenever you've not got an ileostomy, it'll just come out of its own accord. So although output might be slightly higher, it's not something you have to consciously be aware of.
Yeah. So the urgency, I suppose, you haven't got that urgency then to kind of rush off the toilet, so you don't really get that feeling. Yeah, I suppose.
Yeah. And I think, like, for me, certainly over the last couple of weeks, I've been up and down, as you know, a few days off work and whatnot. And it's been about just trying to get back on top of eating and making sure I'm getting enough in, because sometimes I've been knackered, and it's just, you know, with Kylie being sort of pregnant and in the throes of morning sickness, she's not really had much of an appetite. So I think that's kind of had an effect on things, because I've not really been that interested in eating because she's not interested in eating. So then it becomes an effort to cook. Yeah,
cook for one.
I think that times like that, because it'll come around. There'll be times where I'll just be going through the motions and everything will be great, and then it's amazing how quick. So that was less than a month of her having morning sickness for me to then have an absolute downturn and be just absolutely ruled off.
Yeah,
I think I could say.
I mean, would you then say that like your food selection has been different, and therefore the consequences you've been fatigued, or was it just the fact that you're not eating as much or not really thinking about it, and it just seems very coincidental that, you know, it's the not eating as well, and then your stomach being in turmoil.
Definitely, the food choices were less nutritious, should we say? Yeah. There'll be evenings where I come back and we just have cereal in the evening, sort of thing, or be a frozen pizza, or but pretty much comfort food, and
quick and easy.
Yeah, and I was just like, I was coming back, and then getting into that sort of vicious circle or cycle of I'm now tired because I'm not getting enough from my diet, and I can't be bothered because I'm tired to therefore prepare a good meal.
I guess what that shows is that you're getting the calorific content, you're getting the calories in, no doubt. So for example, a pizza. But then for me, if I was to eat when I had the J pouch, if I had pizza, especially the white bread, it would cause so much gas. My pouch would just be, it would have a massive a bad effect on the pouch. I would end up on the toilet so much, and maybe that's whether that be the yeast or whatever it is in the dough, and the tomato and stuff like that. I would definitely see a difference if I was to eat a pizza. So like I said, you're probably getting the calories for the energy, but then what's happening is obviously the adverse effects of the content of the food is just causing you to have more output. So it's just basically you got more out than what you got going in. So therefore you're going to be in a deficit with your calories.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people in our community will go through things like that. And I'm meant to know better.
Yeah, but this is the real world. This is the real world.
Yeah, and it's just, I think for people watching this to understand, I've got a background in nutrition, background in training, a background in elite sport, and I can fall foul in my diet, and they're perhaps the wrong word. I don't even know what I would call it. Just a general fatigue.
Yeah.
Where I'm basically not well, feeling like I'm on the borderline of like a viral infection almost.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not, but I'm all right now. After a few days rest and sort of getting back on point.
But what you also did was take a step back from training as well, and I think that was important to realise that, right, okay, if your nutrition isn't on point, and I mean what I mean by on point is not always going to be 100% clean eating and so forth. It's just you're not getting what you want out of your food. You realise that you've become very fatigued, and training on top of that, we know, is just completely has the adverse effect. You don't get any gains out of training when you're feeling down, when you're feeling fatigued. So sometimes it just takes the start realization that you have to step away from training, get your food back on point, get yourself back to where you want to be feeling wise, and then get back into your training. So it's just taking that kind of educated process, maybe is that the word I'm looking for. To understand what we discussed this before, is knowing your body, understanding the state that you're in, and then realizing that sometimes you have to take a little bit of a step back, look at yourself and think, right, where do I go from here?
So we know why we eat. We eat for energy, and we know that if we don't eat the right things necessarily, then we don't feel so great. The difficulty I think I find for people with Crohn's and colitis is that sometimes the right foods cause the wrong outcomes for them. Everything that we stick in our mouth, it has to go the whole way through from your mouth to your anus essentially, and part way through that it gets its nutrients digested, and that gets put out into whatever the body needs it to be it energy or be it vitamins and minerals into the system to create new life in your cells, or red blood cells and things like that.
Very science-based there, mate. Very, very science. I'm taking a step back.
And I think that's where we fall down a lot. We don't always get the best bit because we have that issue within our gastrointestinal tract. Generally speaking, from below the stomach to the anus, that's where we have most of our problems. And unfortunately for us as humans, that's where most of the usefulness in consuming food comes from.
Yeah, you're right in what you're saying, like with regards to the right foods, the good foods, beans, legumes, just the food, the goodness and stuff. There's only so much you can get from that sometimes. I found it very difficult to beans. Massive, that would cause a lot of wind from my pouch. So I really struggle with stuff like that. We spoke about nuts in the past, didn't we? Nuts are, such a great source of fats and proteins, and yet I couldn't eat nuts because I couldn't digest them. I would more than likely end up with a blockage. So, as much as the goodness in that food is the correct food to be eating, obviously within the right amounts, I just couldn't, my body couldn't tolerate it. So it's all well and good looking at the guidelines of what we should be eating. However, with a J pouch, with a ileostomy, and whatever's going on, it's difficult to follow those guidelines, because you got to work out what's gonna work for you, really.
Yeah, and when you look at things like the Eat Well plate and stuff, it's got, it's good advice. I'm not saying that it's bad advice. You're looking at a balance of carbs, proteins, fats, and vitamins and minerals. But yeah, it's just that understanding that some of those aren't going to fit for us. And I think one of the crazy things I noticed, certainly whenever I moved to a ileostomy, and then now that I've got a J pouch, it's kind of similar, except I can't play with it. Yeah. It's a note to myself from my past. But yeah, so whenever I used to eat food that my body didn't necessarily have the time to digest properly, like baby sweet corns and whatnot, or peas, and it would just, I would feel it coming out of my ileostomy, and it wasn't actually obviously the intestine that I could feel it. It was coming through where the hole was. The pressure around the sort of where the hole was is pumping that out. They're like, oh, what's that? And I look at it, and it's like literally an entire baby sweet corn.
How it's gone in is exactly how it comes back.
Baked beans, the lot coming straight out. The way it went into it, it's just like,
beans, sprouts.
I think tonight, after the last couple of weeks, is one of the first times I've actually sat down in a while and consciously chewed my food
Yeah.
to the nth degree, because there was so many. Again, it's one of those things, like, I know that I need lots of dark green vegetables.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good source of iron, amongst other vitamins and minerals. But if I don't chew it, I'm not going to get anything from it because it's not in my system as long. Well,
Yeah.
maybe that's misinterpretation from myself, but because I see it coming out pretty much as it went in, I'm going,
Oh,
you know,
like clockwork. You can I could guarantee within 2 hours later, what's gone in is coming back out, and that just
yeah,
shows how quick that has gone through your body. So in order for your body to absorb that, it's a lot more difficult. But like you said, it's getting the right foods in, but understanding how that's going to react with your body. Like what were we talking about? Like, again, with the sweet corn, with any kind of really shiny skins such as peppers. Again, I found that difficult to process with a J pouch, very difficult to get through the gut. And then I would get some griping, knowing that my bowel, what I've got left of the bowel, was actually working really hard to try and get that through my body. And sometimes I could feel that I had a partial blockage coming on.
yeah,
So that was difficult because all these colourful, nutrient-rich foods that I really want to get in my body in order to kind of get most out of what my training and just health, really.
mm-hmm.
I was struggling to digest and actually struggling to get in my body. Now you could say, well, supplement that with vitamins, which is a great idea. But ideally, you really want to get everything what you can from food. Does that make sense? From solid foods rather than supplement vitamins. But if you have to, I mean, I've had to take vitamins now, multivitamins. I don't take them every day per se, mainly because I forget. But you can definitely tell a difference in your energy levels and your kind of alertness when I've taken some vitamins.
Yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the head as far as the nutrition side of things goes. I think as a population, not just in Crohn's colitis, I think we all have a very rudimental understanding of what we should eat.
Yeah.
And certainly we know that having a chippy every night isn't going to be good for us. But like you've just alluded to, foods that are normally best for us, ironically, seem to have significant side effects that make people with Crohn's colitis exceptionally uncomfortable. So, like, I know if you consume spinach or, like you're saying, legumes and things like that, being gassy is really not good. But yeah, I think, we do suffer from a deficiency in iron and vitamin B12 and vitamin D because of these things, and sometimes supplementing is the best way, if not the only way, that you're going to be able to keep yourself topped up on those things. And that's more just thinking about people for Crohn's and colitis, certainly trying to keep them top of their iron and B12, because it's such a difficult thing to do. But normal foods, for me, I have struggled with in the past. I've tried to find out ways that I can get them in, so I'm getting it from a food source, because the other thing with that is you're not just getting a specific vitamin or mineral, you're getting basically a basket full. So one of the ways I've found is good to get a lot of the vitamins and minerals out of vegetables is to make smoothies. So you can add supplements on top of that. So like your green drinks and your red drinks that are all the rage at the minute, and you can find them on places like Amazon and whatnot. And we'll have a chat later. Maybe we'll link them down below.
Yeah.
There's plenty of things out there, but just stick in spinach and kale and broccoli and celery and stuff into a food processor with a bit of pineapple, and it's drinkable. Do you know what I mean? And it's a good way, because then, like we mentioned earlier, really consciously chewing your food, well, if it's then liquidized, it then becomes that bit easier for your body to then try and digest it. I'm not saying that Crohn's and colitis, well, you're eating a liquid diet from now on.
Yeah, that's it.
But it is a tool that you can use to help top up any sort of deficits if you don't have the money to be going out and buying tablet formed vitamins and minerals, which I wouldn't suggest is necessarily the best method, but certainly it's a lot cheaper to then make it straight from scratch into a smoothie.
Yeah.
And then that brings me on to my next one. So you talked to me about peanuts before, and peanuts is a great source of oils and fats.
Uh-huh.
And again, like I love peanut butter, and I used to have it quite a bit before I ended up having to have surgeries, and it would never have caused me issues before, not that I was aware of them anyway.
Yeah.
But certainly whenever I would consume it when I had a J pouch, it would come through and it would be little tiny chunks of peanuts, and it would be all chewed up, but it'd be like sand. If that's the way to describe it, it'd be like sand in my sort of sausage bag. So as you can imagine, that consistency then passing through your anus whenever you've gone back to a J pouch was not fun whatsoever. And I thought
you may as well wipe your bottom with sandpaper.
Yeah, I thought my love affair with peanuts was over. But I can, if I eat it with something that's a bit stodgy, I can still eat peanuts in a small quantity. But what I've done is I'll buy just ordinary untreated peanuts from the supermarket. So you can get them from many supermarkets now where they haven't really done anything in terms of processing other than stick them in a packet.
Whole Foods generally, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, the one I've bought is a supermarket's own brand, but you can get lots of like Whole Foods and various other people where they just haven't treated them at all, which I would urge people that's probably the best way to get them. And then I just put them onto a pan. You can and sometimes I'll drizzle it with coconut oil or olive oil, or sometimes I'll just put them in dry and basically roast them myself in the oven, and then I'll put them into a food processor and blitz it until it is literally nothing. So it grinds it right down to like a fine dust powder. If I put olive oil into it and I've topped the olive oil up as I've blitzed it, it actually makes itself into a peanut butter. And then I'm able to put that in, mix it up with yogurt or whatever in the morning for a bit of breakfast with some fruit. And then I'm able to have, how I'm able to have the nuts in, and I actually don't get any irritation.
Yeah.
And what sort of things have you found with foods that you previously maybe have enjoyed, or you know they are good for you, and you've maybe got like a trick to getting them in?
Well, one of the ones, like I said, I spoke about before, supplementing protein, really. Just purely because of my training. Just don't want to end up in the deficit. Don't really want to be kind of going catabolic. So stay on top of that. Like I said, I put the protein powder, and generally I would use either the USN, or I'd use a casein, which is slow release, and put that into a porridge. Sometimes into maybe a Greek yogurt, so like the Faye ones or other brands are available, obviously, but something of a thicker consistency, and just kind of mix that in, and I felt like my body would tolerate it a lot better. As you said before, with some of the other foods, the excuse me, peppers, broccoli, and your greens, you just juice it up. Just get it into a food process and break it down as much as you can. So, your bowels are going to pass that a lot easier. Plus, it's already down that broken stage. So hopefully your body will digest that better, get a much more absorption of the nutrients. I guess if there is a food I'd struggle with, I would generally put that with, again, a lot more roughage. So I know that then the roughage would help to bulk everything up. That makes sense. So, with a lot more vegetable, potatoes, carrots, and I tend to find that was a lot better on my stomach as well.
Yeah, so starchy products for me are always quite good, and it's something I would never really have looked at before. I would always go on like things like whole grain, whereas now I buy white bread, and that's what I'll eat. I'll have white rice, I'll have white pasta. But one of the things I've noticed that I've started to really consume a lot of is bananas. Now, there are schools of thought that overconsumption of bananas can have bad side effects for other reasons. However, I think at some level, you just got to take the rough with the smooth. And I think I'm going to get more benefits from potentially having 2 or 3 bananas a day compared to, and that slowing down my digestion, potentially allowing me to get a bit more out of my food versus not consuming bananas and therefore not retaining, as much.
Don't quote. There's no kind of real reference or quote in here, but we were talking about the consuming bananas not myself, and just another work colleague, who was saying it was something ridiculous. Something like the research that was kind of counteracting what they were saying with regards to how many you should eat. And it was something ridiculous, like you'd need to eat like 20 bananas a day or something for it to have that kind of, the too much zinc or whatever it was. It's ridiculous. Yeah. Like, I'm not going to consume, I'm not a monkey. I'm not going to consume 20 bananas a day. So I think 2 or 3 bananas to help thicken the consistency of what's going through your body is it's not going to give you any negative effects really. Yeah, bananas actually. I'll tell you another really good one, and it's when you talk about white foods and like white bread, white pasta. It's funny when I had the J pouch. Not long after the surgery, I spoke to the surgeon, and he was kind of saying to me, and bear in mind, I'm not trying to be funny, that the surgeon was not in good shape, let's just put it that way. And he did not look after himself. But he was kind of telling me, you need to eat white pasta, white breads. And this is completely, I'd say, it's quite controversial with regards to what we're actually taught, what we should be eating, like your whole grains, in comparison to, the white bleached bread. But you know what? He was absolutely right. Is that I was eating the white pasta and the white bread, and actually it would be slightly better on my stomach than than the whole grain, or the wheat germ and stuff like that. So it's funny how a food that is not generally frowned upon is the wrong thing to say, but not as nutrient dense or as good as what the brown stuff is. Was actually better on our stomach.
Yeah.
Marshmallow, another one. Storming her so to try some marshmallows, and that would help actually thicken up things. So I'll have a bit of chocolate on a marshmallow. That would make a difference. I'm not advocating go out and eat loads of marshmallows because they're full of sugar. What I'm just saying is as something to help. And if you want something, a little bit of that sugary treat, then a marshmallow will do.
Yeah, and I think a big, like, my stomach nurse, we had this conversation the other day, basically told me, oh, well, just go and have McDonald's and stuff and you'll be fine. You can eat that, and you can eat that stuff now. That is like, you don't put on weight when you haven't got a large intestine. And I was just like, I think you're missing the point, love. But, you can go out, and you know what? A portion of McDonald's fries will sort of slow things down, thicken things up a bit. So you've got all of those options, but yeah, it's not going to work in the long run, eating things like that and shoving marshmallows down your neck. But you can do them in the short term.
Yeah, absolutely. So for me then, it was playing around, trial and error with food for a long time. It was writing down a diary, keeping a diary, and you have to be pretty strict with it actually. Trial and error with different foods. Just kind of write it down, whatever you want to do. Put it down your phone. It's just making sure that you put down things that affect you badly and things that help to improve your output. And I think that's a key area really is writing down the foods that you can tolerate and those that you can't, and then finding a good balance really. That made the biggest difference for me actually when I had a J pouch. Now, like I said, with an ileostomy, I can tolerate. So the foods that I found out really badly affected me, and those that I can tolerate a lot better because I could retrial them when I had the ileostomy, and then think, well, actually, do you know what? I'm handling that a lot better. I actually had a Guinness last night, and like I said previously, with a J pouch, any alcohol would just turn my stomach, and it'd be in a bad way. But I had Guinness last night, and the output for my pouch was no different to what it was. Not what it was. The ileostomy. The output was no different to what it was without a drink, if that makes sense.
Where were you last night?
Just in the house.
Oh, it's nice.
No, it was it was my sister-in-law and my best mate, who's her fella. They got engaged on holiday last week.
Nice.
So they came round for a takeaway. Dare I say it? We talked about nutrition. I had a takeaway, and I decided that we'd have a can of Guinness together just to celebrate. And do you know what? It went down smooth. It went down really nice, and I didn't have any problems with it afterwards. So I was quite pleased. But it was only one can. But that's what we're saying. Everything in moderation. I think we have to make that point as well. With regards to the food that we eat in, you can eat. You can tend to eat what you want, but it's got to be in moderation.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's the rule for life, really. Just moderation. What you're talking about whenever you had your J pouch and stuff.
Yeah.
I think that's a really important factor for a lot of people at various stages of the disease or various stages of takedown or setup, is keeping a food diary. And if you have a very bland diet, don't just take what we're saying as verbatim. The stuff that we're talking about eating, we've trialed that into our own diets.
Yeah.
And I think if you were to chuck, people watching this, if you're just going to chuck stuff into your diet, you may fall foul. So just try little bits and pieces, try it in small doses, and then see how you react with that. And then if it does have a positive reaction, then you can, increase that and see how that goes. And if it has a negative reaction, then just cut it out. The last thing we want is to cause people more discomfort through food. So try and explore as many foods as you can, and that way you'll know what works, what doesn't work. And again, just because something didn't work the first time around, in 6 months' time, it could work.
Yeah.
So it's just being able to do that.
I had to do that, like I said, with chocolate, because I said majority of the population out there will enjoy chocolate, and the stoma nurse said to me, well, why don't you start on a white chocolate with the less cocoa content, just like a baby. Generally, what they used to do with babies, start them on like a white chocolate, and then bring yourself onto the lower content cocoa chocolates, and then build that up. And actually, it did work, I guess. But I could eat chocolate. I could eat kind of a milk chocolate, but again, it would be in very small amounts. And if I was being a glutton, then I knew I was going to pay for it afterwards. So it's not to completely avoid the foods that affect you. It's just try them in smaller amounts first, and the more you can tolerate, then hopefully the more you can eat. But whether you're suffering with the illness or not, I mean, copious amount of chocolate isn't really going to help anyone in the long term. Makes you feel better sometimes, but it's just understanding that don't completely cut foods, well, cut them out, but kind of introduce them slowly back into your diet. Yeah.
So on that, so how are you feeling for this week? So do you mind me discussing this week?
Oh no, absolutely not. No, carry on. Yeah.
So John's going back in for another surgery this week, so I'm just wondering on that front, like, how have you been working nutrition wise and stuff to get yourself ready for that, and how do you feel about it?
Well, the surgery I'm actually having this week is for a prolapse stoma, caused by a blockage that I had. So the convulsions caused it to prolapse. So hopefully it's not like a huge invasive surgery again. I discussed this with the surgeon. Hopefully he's been able to go in around the side of the stoma and pull that back through, suture it off, and off you go. If not, I'm going to have another cut up and down, a good 8 inches, as it was last time. I'm hoping it doesn't come to that. With regards to prepping food-wise and diet, I'm not, like I said, I had Chinese the weekend. Nothing really changes up until probably about Wednesday. The surgery's on Thursday. So I said from Wednesday is probably going to be eating not as heavy roughage food, not as dense food. So it'll be just maybe some fish and some protein, maybe some rice, just white rice, just lighter foods really, some fruit, especially bananas, maybe some tangerines, stuff like that. So plenty of vitamins, minerals, energy in there, and keep me nice and prepped for the surgery. But that's it really. It's not really going to make a massive difference. I mean, the surgery is, any surgery really going under the knife is quite worrying. But you know what? Been there, done that, and hopefully it's not going to be as bad this time. I'll be back on my feet before I know it, and then getting back in the gym to do my rehab.
So one of the things I liked about it is, like, you're talking about getting enough vitamins and minerals in and getting yourself ready for that repair process.
Yeah.
And like, I noticed the other week you were doing something very specific with an apple, and like, so how do you manage your fruit intake?
Yeah, so we said about shiny skins, peppers and apples and so forth, and that's something I really couldn't tolerate with my bowel, especially when I had the J pouch. So what I tend to do is take them off. So with regards to the apple I was having the other day, was took off the skin, just peeled off the skin, and then ate the apple there. And I found that was really good. You know, obviously I'm getting the goodness of the apple without the bad effects of eating the skin. So like I said, foods like that you can still eat, but it's just adapting how you eat them. I mean, there's arguments obviously that the content of the goodness of the skin that comes from the apple, but then I'm still getting benefits and goodness from the apple itself by discarding the skin that would, well, otherwise cause me to have an upset stomach. I've not really tried it with the ileostomy, so eating an apple with the skin on with the ileostomy, but to be honest, I'm not that bothered. I'm happy that I can eat an apple without the skin on.
Well, I can key you in that because I've done both.
But you eat kiwis with skin on, don't you?
No.
What?
Hell no.
Who does that?
I don't know. Probably Kyle.
Oh no, it's LJ. It's LJ. LJ does it. I think it's just laziness for him, really. I think he just can't be asked to peel it. So just eat it with the skin on.
Yeah, but essentially the skin is insoluble fiber, so it adds to that sort of what people would then call in a diet, they call it roughage. And then the fruit itself inside the skin is soluble fiber, which is where we get a lot of stuff from. So the roughage that people normally talk about, that's to bulk out your large intestine. If you haven't got a large intestine, there's really no need for it, so to speak. So having just the soluble part is fine for us, and it's going to cause us less headaches or less bowel aches or arse aches, whatever you want to call it. So yeah, and it makes complete sense. And to be honest, it actually makes the food more enjoyable. I'm not going down the line of where I'm peeling grapes, but certainly, you know, I'll peel an orange. You peel an orange anyway. You know, you're going to peel a banana. You're going to peel an apple now. I think the apple is really the only one that's unusual for us to peel.
Yeah.
Potato skins, as an Irishman, I have to give up my potato skins. You know, the odd time I'll have one. I'll have like a slither of it just to give me that flavour, because like a well done jacket potato or baked potato where the skin's all crispy and that,
Quite hard to resist, really, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's just one of those things, and it's just an adaptation and it's just understanding. So I think trialing all those things like we said is going to be really, really good for you, and just bringing it in small samples. So what are you thinking, John, post surgery now? What's your thought process? So you're approaching deadline day. What's going to be things you're thinking?
Well, ultimately, after the surgery, depending which way it goes with regards to the cut, I think in order to get my energy up quite quick, because I'm going to probably be immobile for a little while, maybe a few days. If the cut's worse, then it's going to be a few weeks. So I think the initially post-surgery will be high energy drinks. So when I had the first ever surgery, I think they give me drinks called Ensure, which are full of calories, which I'm probably going to need, because for me, every time I've had surgery, so this will be the 5th time, I tend to lose hell of a lot of weight, and that's just my metabolic rate, my kind of my body type, as a classic ectomorph. I will lose a lot of muscle mass quite quickly. So if I can get the kind of energy dense and the calorific dense foods in straight away in the form of shakes to start with, because that's probably what my stoma is going to be able to handle for the first few weeks, then that's kind of what I'm going to do. But I will then build that up slowly then with proteins, but soft, like white meats or fish, rather than red meats, because I probably won't be able to tolerate them for a little while either. So yeah, it's going to be a slow process, but I think just getting foods in that are easy to break down, so easier soluble foods to get into the system, and that would probably be through, like I said, shakes to start with.
Like for people that are watching, what is an ileostomy? In case they haven't got one already. Do you want me to do that one?
Yeah.
Okay, guys. So for those of you watching that maybe are quite normal functioning with your Crohn's and colitis and haven't had to go through surgery just yet, you may not be aware of what an ileostomy is. So an ileostomy, say that again, an ileostomy is essentially where the surgical team remove your large bowel, and then you're left with a stoma, and then you are given a colostomy bag, and you'll basically no longer need to go to the toilet through your rectum anymore, and you'll go number 2 into the colostomy bag. One of the things with that is because you no longer pass through your rectum, therefore food comes out of its own, or waste product comes out of its own speed. So it's difficult to control things like salt and water retention. So that's something that also needs to be a balance if you've got an ileostomy, and thinking about those aspects of it on top of everything else that we've talked about tonight.
But it just shows how complex it is. I mean, it's kind of hard for people to understand if they've not suffered from the illness or don't know anyone that does suffer with the illness. It's really hard to describe. You think food is by the by. It's, you know, it goes in one end and it comes out the other, but a little bit different from us. It comes out the other end, but through your abdomen rather than come out your bottom. So, like you said, there's not that we all have a control over what's happening inside our body. It's just it's got less to travel, and less your body obviously has less absorption from the body. So it becomes very difficult. It is a lot of trial and error and just seeing what works for you. But with regard to salt content, I mean, I do add a little bit more salt to my food, which does alter the flavouring. But then I know that I'm getting the sodium, you know, in the body that I need. I mean, keeping yourself rehydrated is obviously hugely key. Drinking copious amount of water doesn't always help, because that can come, you know, as in one end straight out the other. So just adding some kind of not high sugary fruit juices, but just something to it to give a little bit more substance, so it holds better. That's what I found. So even if it's a little kind of a low sugar squash, just something like that, that'll just kind of retain a little bit longer in the body than just kind of water. I found that obviously helps.
Yeah, and that's a big balance. So one of the things I notice massively is when I'm dehydrated, and it's something I do try my best to keep on top of. So one of the tricks I have on the hydration side is to consume little bit and often. And then if I'm consuming more than a little bit, I'll try and tie that up with eating something like a banana or a sandwich, or something where there's going to be something that's going to sort of absorb a little bit of it.
Yeah.
And I think that can work well in terms of allowing you to maintain hydration whilst not just constantly running to the toilet.
So for fruits with a lot, you know, that are very not liquidy, but, you know, have a lot of liquid content, such as like kiwis themselves, pomegranate, oranges. So your hydration levels will be picked up through eating food, if that makes sense, rather than just keep drinking water. So I found that really helps as well.
Yeah, totally. And then another thing I found is like there'll be points in the day, like I never really was one for eating little and often, whereas now I will definitely condone snacking, and just being sensible with your snacks. I'm not saying like just walk around with a constant multi-pack of Walkers on you, but like, you know, picking up little bits and pieces. You know, I don't mind having I'll have the odd fruit bar. There's a company called Naked that makes them with dates, essentially. It's compressed, all the fruit compressed in with dates. That makes, essentially, the date makes the bar. Loads of other companies that do exactly the same thing. That's quite good.
Can I just chip in there? So you're talking about dates and those Naked bars. Again, this is where we differ. You've had the same disease, that's not. I found that my body couldn't tolerate dates, so I would eat one of those bars, and they're fantastic tasting bars and great kind of nutrients in them. But I found that my body couldn't tolerate them. Do you know what I mean? So this is what we're talking about, is what works for one may not work for the other. But, you know, just having some dried fruit, some chipped bananas, these, you know, things that you can easily carry around, things that are quite easy portable, and just kind of snack on them.
Yeah, so I find so totally dried, when it was like literally like a chip or a crisp,
Yeah.
I didn't like that, but whenever it was like the stage before, I'm not sure what you call that, preserved fruit, I guess,
Yeah.
maybe.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
You get like mango and peaches and things where it's got a little bit of texture still with it.
Yeah.
I could eat them like that, and
Yeah.
actually that was really useful. And again, but like today's world, we're being preached about levels of sugar and whatnot. So just managing it. There's other things as well that you can find to bring in and have. So like I'll have porridge or other bits and pieces of food really. But what I do find is that I was towards 3 o'clock in the afternoon getting very, very gassy, and I wasn't having any foods that I was aware of that would make me gassy, and it's just a change in my system that all of a sudden in the afternoons, if I don't consume something, then I'll get gassy to the point where I need to lie down and let a massive fart, which is great because I work in a huge aircraft hangar, so I don't really disturb anything.
Just dispersed anyway.
Yeah. But yeah, it's I can understand for other people who maybe work in an office environment or somewhere else that's a bit more public, that getting to that stage where you are cramping up and you don't feel that you can alleviate it some way, that might be an answer for you to have something like water can actually dissipate the wind as well.
Mint, chewing peppermint teas or just a peppermint cordial stuff. I understand peppermint cordial has a lot of sugars. Hello.
I remember actually after I think it was my second surgery, and I was in excruciating pain, and I was doubled over and screaming for extra meds to nullify the pain. And I was at this stage, like I was literally 24 hours post-op, and the still had a catheter in, still had everything that been hanging off me, that been was still on a morphine pump. So I was like, do you know what I mean? I was self-administering morphine and I was still in TurboClip. And the nurse was like, oh, you need to get up and walk around. And I was like, how am I going to walk around when I'm doubled over in pain? And I've got all this stuff with me and I need stronger. And she was like, it's just wind, son. I was just like, what? And then sure enough, I got up and walked around, and I had a massive burp and a massive fart into my stoma bag. And that was wind. So,
it's funny because it's so real though. It's exactly what it's like. It's like as you manage to get yourself up and just like, I'm up, then you can feel it kind of disperse. You can feel it, all the mechanics, everything going on. It's like you can feel it gurgling. You think, actually that's what I needed. It's funny because it's so real. That's what it is.
And I'm lying there thinking I'm having an embolism or something. Something's happened. Okay, so John, we chatted a lot about different bits and pieces. What's your sort of takeaway? How would you like to wrap up today's chat?
First and foremost, there's plenty of it. Apart from what we've discussed, there's plenty of information out there from the Crohn's and Colitis website and other forums related to the disease, that will guide you on different foods that you can try. Basically, that runs into the next point, mumbling on, is that it's still trial and error. So whatever the guidelines say, that isn't necessarily verbatim for everyone. It's what works best for you. And as we discussed, some things that may work for one person may not work for the other. But it's essential, absolutely essential, that you keep a food diary, because that will make all the difference for you in the long term. It's short term, kind of not pain in the bottom, no pun intended, but it's to kind of jotting everything down. But the sooner you do it, the better it will be long term for you.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think John's made an excellent point. There is no real fast rule, and I discovered that I talked to a dietitian. I was fortunate enough that when everything happened, I was at the Centre of Excellence for Rehab in the military, and we had people on tap. And I was really annoyed because the dietitian wouldn't give me any. She was giving me advice, but she wasn't giving me advice. Yeah. And the reason she wasn't giving me advice is because it's so personal that it's very difficult to give advice. So the biggest thing that I would say is to try and look at foods that give you the most bang for your buck. Generally speaking, it's vegetables. Generally speaking, they're dark green in variety. And if you can try those in small quantities and see if they work for you, or try them in a blended up, or try them in a soup, or try them soft after cooking. That's going to be the best way you can potentially get those into your system.
Yeah.
But definitely keep a diary and experiment. It's the only way that you're going to really discover things that work for you, and just have a bit of fun doing it. There's loads of different diets out there. There's loads of different things that people talk about, but like with everything in today's world, there's always a counter piece of research that will tell you exactly the opposite of what that other piece of research is. There is no right way. Let me rephrase that. There is no one size fits all. There's no one size fits all when it comes to diet nutrition, and you'll have one guy that swears by paleo, you'll have another guy that has some anti-inflammatory diet that cuts out carbs, you'll have another guy that's like fat only, and that might work for them, but it may not work for you. So you got to think in the micro and in the macro, is that sustainable in the macro, and in the micro, is that causing you a hell of a lot of disruption? I mean, I tried to have a low carb, high fat sort of balanced diet for a while. I couldn't handle it because without the carbs in there, and I could not eat enough cauliflower to take over what a slice of bread would do. The level of acidity in my system was quite high because without a large intestine, and we're not able to absorb the essentially the bile that comes out of your stomach, so that will leak into your small intestine. But by the time it gets into the large intestine, and by the time it gets to a normal person's rectum, it's generally speaking nullified. That's not the case whenever you've got a J pouch or an ileostomy. So those are all things, but different people. That's what I'm saying. That didn't work for me, but it could work for somebody else. So definitely experiment. And like John's already alluded to, there's a website for people like us in the UK called Crohns Colitis UK. And equally, there are websites in America. One that I know of is Crohn's Colitis Foundation. I believe that they all talk to each other and generally have a consensus on the stuff that they pump out in terms of advice. And it's really good. There's loads of PDF files on there or leaflets that give you lots of different bits and pieces and actually quite in-depth information, and links it on to other research and other places that you can go and find for information. So yeah, seek that out, have a look, keep a diary, but most of all, I want people to stop feeling like they're stuck. I don't want people to feel like they're stuck and feel like there's no way out. There's always a way out, and there's always something that we can do. And just try and enjoy it. Try and enjoy the small things. That's what I'm trying to do as best I can. You know, we've both got kids, and you know, there's some days that they drive us up the wall. It's realizing that child's fit and healthy, and actually, you know, given what we've been through, we're still here to enjoy them. So that's
absolutely, yeah. That's a good point.
Well, I think that takes us off from this episode.
Absolutely. Specific, but just.
Let's go for it.
What were we going to say? So what?
You're getting battered there, aren't you? By the way, it's really kicking off down there.
Expecting Mary Poppins coming down.
Hi guys, thanks for watching today's episode. I hope you got something from it. If you haven't done so already, make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit that little bell icon, and you'll get an update when we upload our newest content. And don't forget to leave a comment down below. Let's turn this into a discussion, because the more we talk about it, the better it's going to be for everybody. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.